Hi guys, Ben Taylor here and welcome to another Tuesday tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to really up your landscape photography game. I'm going to show you how to add colour into your landscape photos so that you can just squeeze every juicy bit of goodness into your photo and really make them stand out. Without further ado, let's jump into today's tutorial and get started. Thank you for joining me today for today's tutorial. It's always great to have you guys here along watching the videos. And you know what, if this is your first time here and you've never watched my videos before, then I want to let you know what we're all about. We're a passionate community here which love Photoshop, Lightroom and photography. And if that's you and that's something you really enjoy, then you should definitely join us and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you hit that notification bell. That just keeps you in the loop and lets you know when new releases are about to take place. Something I want to share with everyone today watching this video is I am amazed, absolutely amazed at the mind-blowing level of photography that I'm seeing you guys produce and capture. I've been spending a bit of time on Facebook, Instagram and photography forums, and I'm just blown away by the level of photography. It just really is so impressive. It's so nice as well to see people leaving positive comments, letting these people know they've done a good job. And also, you know, if you get any negative comments on there, don't worry about them, guys. Just completely dismiss them, unless they're comments giving you, you know, kind of advice on how to grow as a photographer. There is like one kind of comment that I see on these forums and these social media sites that actually, it makes me quite sad. And that's when people have lost complete hope. I see comments where people are congratulating the photographer, saying, you know, great job, great work, but I tried taking photos like you, I was no good, and I gave up. You must hear this. If you're one of them people, I know not everyone is watching this, but if you're one of them people that feels a bit down on yourself right now, everyone starts somewhere. Do you think Michael Jordan, you know, picked up a basketball the first time and then suddenly he was NBA level? That didn't happen. You know, he took hours and hours of practice, weeks, months, years, you know, developing his craft until he got really good. So if you feel a little bit down, hopefully this tutorial is going to perk you up, because you're going to learn two techniques: how to colour your landscape photos. It could be another style of photo, it doesn't have to be landscape photos, and also how to bring back details in areas where you've lost the details, like your deep shadows and your highlights. You're going to see just these two techniques can really transform your images. It doesn't have to be difficult, it can be easy. So if you're feeling a bit low, hopefully this is going to pick you up and then, you know, get you back on that road to learning again and feeling great about yourself. I'm sorry if I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, guys, for everyone that, you know, isn't feeling this way, but it makes me sad to see this, so I thought I'd get that across to people and hopefully make them feel better. Right, so let's jump into today's tutorial now and really get on with it, shall we? Okay, so this is today's image that we're going to be working with, and it's a particularly nice one, I think. It's a lovely, rugged landscape image to really sink our teeth into. This photo has been taken by Mark Zimmer, so I'm going to give a shout out to him. And I got this photo off a website called Pexels, so I thought I'd give a shout out to the photographer for the great photo he's taken. Now, what are we going to be doing with this image? Now, as I previously discussed before, we're going to be making sure that we take care of the colours and also bringing back some details in the highlights and the shadows. It's a beautiful picture to start with, but what I want to do is I really want to make these greens here more vibrant and also bring back some of the red in the rocks here, which cannot really be seen that well. I'm also going to create some more blue in the sky here, so I'm going to pump up the saturation there. And I think that's what we'll do to start with by adding colour into the photo. Okay, so what do I do to add colour into the photos? There's so many ways you can do this in Photoshop, but a way that I like to do it is to actually use the hue saturation adjustment layer. First things first, so let's make sure we're not working on the background layer. Let's press Ctrl J, and that's going to create a duplicate layer here. When we've got our duplicate layer, now we can move on to selecting the hue saturation adjustment layer. If you don't know where that is, just come up to adjustments here. Alternatively, if the adjustments is not showing, you can come along to window, click down, and then you can choose it here. Make sure it's ticked and then it'll pop up there. So the adjustment is the hue saturation adjustment, and that can be found here. So I'm going to click on that now. Now the hue saturation adjustment layer enables you to change the colour, the saturation and the lightness. So the colour is here and it's called the hue. That basically means colour. So if I want to change the colour, I could just move this slider around. I could drag it down or I could drag it up, and you get some wacky, like I don't know, alien planet landscapes when you do that, and that's not what we're looking for here. So you can do that with the hue slider, but if we want to just change the greens, then that's not the most effective way of doing it, is it? So how would we just go about affecting the greens of the image and not affecting the other colours to start with? Well, we can do that by coming up here to this drop down. It says master. If you click down, then you've got greens. And looking at this again, I actually think there's quite a bit of yellow in here, maybe even more than the green. So I'm going to select yellow from the drop down. Now, rather than just moving my hue slider around and affecting it like this, it's always nice to know exactly what colour you want to change. So to do that, you've got this brilliant little option here called the eyedropper tool. If you click on it and then click on the colour that you want to change, like this, it now tells Photoshop, hey listen, this guy wants to change just this colour here. So you can see that reflected here. If I was to press there, that would move. I'm going to press here and that's just moved back there. So this is the colour range that we're going to be changing. Now all we want to do is add more vibrance into this. I'm pretty happy with the way the colour is, so I'm just going to punch up the saturation slider here and then add in more saturation into the greens. In fact, I think I'm actually going to just push these yellows a little bit more into the green side of things as well. So I'm just going to push this up here a little bit and keep that at about 8. That's quite nice there. Okay, so we've added more saturation in just by pushing up the saturation slider, and we've just changed the yellow a little bit to push it more to a green colour. Okay, the next thing that we're going to move on to is really changing this colour here. I'm going to really make this nice and red so that you can see it standing out in the rocks. What I like to do is I never like to use the same adjustment layer, because if you use another adjustment it means that you've got room to go back and change it quite easily. So I'm going to go up to adjustments, select another hue saturation adjustment layer, and this time I'm going to use the drop down to select reds. With red selected, I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool again, which remember tells Photoshop, hey, this guy wants to change this colour. Like Photoshop's got a brain or something. So I'm going to click on this like that, and then I can punch up the saturation again and you can see that it's really affecting it. But I've noticed it's actually affecting red in the rest of my image, which we don't want. If I push up the saturation slider now, look, you can see there's actually a lot more red than I thought there was in the image to begin with. So I'm going to bring the saturation down a little bit. I think that's where I want it for the rocks, so you can see that lovely detail in the rocks there. I'm going to leave it there, and now I'm going to hide the effect, because remember, on our adjustment layers we have a mask, and this is fantastic for hiding and revealing certain parts of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control I or Command I if you're on the Mac, and this is going to hide the effect here. Then I'm going to move over to my brush tool, the left hand side. I'm going to come down to the colours here. We've got white and black. Now I want to reveal the red in the rocks only. So white reveals and black hides. So what do you think we're going to be using? We're going to be using the white, that's of course. So I'm going to use white here, press OK, and then I'm just going to paint this colour back in the rocks. And you can see this lovely red just coming through in the rocks now. And it actually helps add a bit of detail in there as well. Just add it to these bits here. Okay, so now we've done that, the next step is to move on to the sky. At the moment the sky is blue of course, but we want to make it a bit bluer. So we're going to go over to adjustments, down to hue saturation adjustment layer. We're going to select blue this time, and then finally use our eyedropper hit the blues, and now we're going to punch up the saturation like that again. As you can see, once again, it's also affecting the other blues in the image, so we just need to hide this effect by pressing Ctrl I. And then now we can use our brush tool just to paint this in the sky only, like this. And this is just going to make the blue in the sky stand out, and it's not going to affect anywhere else in the image. Lovely, that's just what we want. Okay, so we've taken care of the colour in the image. We've really added colour into the image, and it's made the image pop. So if you just want to see the before and after on this, all you need to do is click here on the one layer, shift click on the other, and then we want to group these together. So you could simply press Ctrl G, and this is going to group them. And now this means that we can just have a look at the before and after nice and easily by clicking the eye here. So this is the before, and this is the after. Really made the image stand out more by adding more colour into it. Okay, so the next step is to bring back some details in the shadows and the highlights. And this is some technique which I pretty much never see being used, but it's a great technique as long as it's used sparingly to bring back the details. So how are we going to do that? Well, first thing we need to do is create a new layer, Control Shift and N. You can also create a new layer by coming down here. And now I'm going to create a stamp visible layer. This is a copy of everything we see on a layer. To do that, Shift, Control, Alt and E. It's a bit of a mouthful. Shift, Control, Alt and E. And we've now got this stamp visible layer here. You can see this if I come up to the Move tool. I can grab it, move it around, and there's a stamp visible there. Okay, so now we've got our stamp visible layer in place. Let's make some changes to the darker and lighter areas. To do that, we need to come up to Image, go to Adjustments, and then come down to Shadows and Highlights. First thing you want to do is get your shadow sliders and drag it all the way down. So you're starting from 0, like that. Everything's on 0. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to bring back the details in these rocks a little bit more. But I want this change to be subtle. I don't want it to be, overcooked. So I'm just going to push up the amount to about 11, about 13. I'm going to push up the tone to around about 16, and then push up the radius to about 15. And look how that's just brought back details in the rocks here, so you can really see that more clearly. It's really important to keep this effect down low, because if you go too high with it, you get some crazy looking results, and you don't want that. You want it looking natural, don't you? So we've done the shadows here, and if you just want to have a look at the before, you can use this preview box, click the tick off, that's before, and this is after. It's just brought back details that we couldn't see very clearly before. Okay, the next step is to click OK, and I'm going to do this again. I'm going to create a new layer like that, Control Shift N. I'm going to create another stamp visible layer. That's Shift, Control, Alt and E. And finally, I'm going to go up, select another shadows, highlights, adjustment, and this time, I'll bring the sliders down again. This time, I'm just going to affect the highlights. Now, the highlights that we want to affect is the sky, because at the moment we really don't have that much detail, and this is a superb little technique for bringing back detail in the sky. So I'm just going to push up my amount. You can already see we're getting more detail back in the sky there. I'm going to push up the tone, and finally the radius. And you can see that we've got so much more detail in the sky just by changing the highlights there. You can mess around with these sliders and get them to a point you're happy with. If you push this up too much though, it starts looking unrealistic, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And about there is looking really good, I think. And then click OK. Now we don't necessarily want that change affecting the rest of the image. You can see it's affected this a little bit. But let's first have a look at the before and after. This is the before, and this is the after. And actually, it's only really changed the sky anyway, so that's done a really good job there. So let's just get these two layers and group these as well. So we're going to shift click these together and press Ctrl G. Now let's have a look at the before and after, so we're able to see the changes that we've made to our landscape photo. This is the before. As you can see, it's really kind of quite dark and there's not much colour in there. You can't see anything in the sky, it's really hazy. And then look now. Really made this image stand out so much more. So what we've done in this tutorial is learn two steps. We have used a hue saturation adjustment layer to add in red into the rocks, green into the grass and blue into the sky, and then we've used a shadows and highlights adjustment to bring back details in the shadows and the highlights. Imagine what you could do if you did more than two steps. That's something to think about. This is what people are doing on these social media sites such as Facebook and Instagram. They take a great photo and then they go into programs like Lightroom and Photoshop and make it look amazing. I hope you found today's tutorial really helpful, guys. I hope you found it valuable, and most of all, I hope you've just really enjoyed watching something that I've created for you, and hopefully you'll come back and you'll watch more. If you haven't already, I'd love to have you subscribe and just hit that notification bell. And whatever you do today, I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that I'll see you again really soon.